April 8, 1994. A body lies in a greenhouse room above a Seattle garage. Two coffee cups sit on a nearby table. Within hours, investigators declare it suicide. Case closed. Investigation over. But what if the evidence told a different story? What if the crime scene contained contradictions so glaring, so impossible to explain, that closing the case wasn't just premature? It raised serious questions. This is part 2 of our investigation into Kurt Cobain's death, and what we're about to reveal will make you question everything the Seattle Police Department told the world that April. When Gary Smith discovered Kurt's body, he immediately noticed something that troubled him. The greenhouse room door was secured with an external latch. A latch that could only be fastened from outside the room. Gary had to release that latch to push the door open. But here's where the story becomes complicated. The official police report states that Kurt barricaded himself inside the greenhouse room. A wooden stool was wedged against the interior door, preventing entry from outside. According to those who've examined this evidence, these two facts appear difficult to reconcile. It's been suggested that if the door was latched from the outside, then Kurt couldn't have barricaded himself on the inside. If someone latched the door from outside, critics argue, then Kurt may not have been alone, and he may not have been barricading himself in. Some investigators have noted this appears to be a logical impossibility. When Tom Grant confronted Seattle police with this apparent contradiction, according to his accounts, he received vague, conflicting responses. Some officers allegedly claimed the external latch was already open when they arrived. Others reportedly suggested Gary Smith misremembered. According to Tom's reports, no one provided what he considered a coherent explanation for how a door could be simultaneously secured from both sides. Crime scene photographs show the interior stool clearly wedged against the door, but photographs clearly documenting the exterior latch's position. According to available records, those were never made available. Some believe the one piece of evidence that could resolve this apparent contradiction wasn't properly documented, or if it was, critics suggest it's being withheld. So here's the question that has troubled investigators who've examined this case. If the door was latched from outside, as Gary Smith reported, who latched it? And why would they leave Kurt's body in that room? But the door isn't the only detail that's raised questions. Let's talk about fingerprints, or more accurately, according to official reports, the complete absence of them. Standard procedure in any death investigation requires fingerprint analysis of weapons involved. This applies to confirmed suicides just as much as suspected homicides. It's basic forensic work. Non-negotiable. The shotgun found with Kurt's body was processed for fingerprints. The result? According to the official report, nothing usable was recovered. No clear prints. Not Kurt's. Not anyone else's. The weapon was essentially clean. Some have questioned what this means. Kurt allegedly loaded this shotgun, positioned it, pulled the trigger, but according to official reports, left no identifiable fingerprints. The official explanation suggests Kurt might have been wearing gloves, but crime scene photographs show no gloves on his hands or anywhere near his body. Alternative theories propose the weapon's textured surface didn't retain prints, but firearms experts have noted that the specific Remington model involved typically preserves excellent fingerprints on both the smooth metal components and wooden stock. Some investigators have suggested a different explanation, one that homicide investigators encounter regularly in certain types of crime scenes. It's being theorized that the weapon may have been wiped clean. According to this theory, someone may have handled that shotgun after Kurt died. Someone may have removed fingerprint evidence. And some believe someone wanted that scene to look exactly like a suicide, clean, simple, closed. Tom Grant, drawing on his law enforcement background, reportedly requested re-examination of the weapon using advanced fingerprint recovery techniques developed after 1994. Forensic technology has advanced significantly in 30 years. Prints invisible to 1990s methods can now be detected and lifted. According to Tom's account, his request was denied. The weapon remains in evidence lockup, reportedly unavailable for independent analysis. Seattle police have maintained no further examination is necessary. The case, they insist, is closed. So some ask, If this was clearly suicide, why refuse modern forensic analysis? What might that shotgun reveal that remains undiscovered? Now let's examine the suicide note itself, or more precisely what that note actually says, and according to some analysts, what it doesn't. The note found at the scene was addressed to Boda, Kurt's childhood imaginary friend. It discusses disillusionment with the music industry. It expresses feelings of being a fraud as a performer. It describes losing passion for music that once excited him. Some observers have noted that, read objectively, it sounds more like a retirement letter, a goodbye to his career perhaps, but not explicitly, they argue, a goodbye to life. Nowhere in the main body does Kurt explicitly mention ending his life. He doesn't say farewell to his daughter Frances. He doesn't address Courtney directly. Some have suggested the entire tone implies someone stepping away from fame, not someone planning death, until the final 4 lines. Those lines read, "Please keep going, Courtney, for Frances, for her life, which will be so much happier without me. I love you." Only these final lines reference death. Only these lines mention his family. And according to multiple handwriting analysts who've examined photographs of the note, only these lines appear to show distinct differences from the main body. Some experts have reported that the letter formation differs, the pressure changes, the spacing and slant shift noticeably. Several forensic document examiners consulted by investigators have noted these inconsistencies. Some have suggested the final lines may have been added by a different hand. Tom Grant formally requested comprehensive forensic document examination. This would include ink aging analysis, pressure pattern analysis, and detailed handwriting comparison, using the complete note rather than just photographs. According to reports, that request was also denied. The note, authorities insisted, was unquestionably a suicide note. No further analysis was warranted or would be permitted. But critics have asked, if the note is unquestionably authentic, why not allow examination that would definitively prove it? Why not silence the doubters with scientific analysis? Some believe there may be something about that note, specifically those final 4 lines, that authorities prefer not to have confirmed or denied through modern forensic methods. Some theorists have asked, what if those lines were added after Kurt died? What if someone took his retirement letter and transformed it into a suicide note with 4 carefully crafted sentences? That would explain, they argue, why the rest of the note never mentions death. It would explain the reported handwriting discrepancies. It would explain why authorities have allegedly refused modern forensic examination. And according to these theories, it would mean Kurt Cobain may never have intended to die that April morning. Perhaps the most frustrating aspect of this entire investigation, according to those who've attempted to examine it, is what remains hidden in sealed police files. When Tom Grant requested the complete investigation file through public records laws, he received a document so heavily redacted it was nearly useless. Entire pages blacked out, witness statements partially obscured, crime scene photographs withheld entirely. The justification? Privacy protection and ongoing investigation concerns, but the investigation was officially closed within days. There are no ongoing concerns. There is no active case, and some legal experts have noted that privacy laws don't typically allow withholding forensic evidence in resolved cases, especially cases involving public figures where legitimate questions remain unanswered. Tom filed appeals. He argued for transparency. He pointed out that public interest in this case demanded full disclosure. Some additional information was eventually released, but substantial portions remain sealed 3 decades later. What's in those sealed pages? What evidence might they contain? What witness statements were deemed too sensitive for public viewing? In 2014, Seattle police made a curious announcement. They'd discovered 4 previously undeveloped photographs from the original crime scene. 20 years after Kurt's death, they finally processed film that should have been developed within hours of the investigation. They claimed these new photographs showed nothing that changed their conclusions, just different angles of the same scene. Nothing to see here. But that announcement raises questions for those who followed this case. How does evidence from a high-profile death investigation remain unprocessed for 2 decades? Who decided those photographs weren't important enough to develop in 9? And what else might be sitting in evidence storage, unexamined and unanalyzed, waiting to reveal information someone may prefer remain undiscovered? Here's what we know from documented sources. The door was reportedly latched from outside, which appears inconsistent with Kurt barricading himself inside. The shotgun had no usable fingerprints according to official reports, which some find fundamental if Kurt handled it to take his own life. The suicide note's final lines show apparent handwriting differences according to some analysts, suggesting to critics that they may have been added after the main text was written, and crucial pages of the police report remain hidden, preventing independent verification of the official narrative. These aren't baseless theories. These are documented facts and officially acknowledged circumstances. Physical evidence that the official investigation has never, according to critics, adequately addressed. Every homicide detective learns a fundamental principle. When the evidence doesn't appear to fit the conclusion, question the conclusion. When multiple pieces of evidence seem to contradict the official story, investigate why. But according to those who've examined this case, Seattle police did something different. Critics argue they ignored contradictions. They allegedly dismissed apparent inconsistencies. They sealed evidence. They reportedly refused modern forensic analysis. They closed the case before basic investigative questions were, according to some observers, adequately answered. Why? What might they have been protecting? What didn't they want discovered? And some ask, who benefited from declaring this suicide before the evidence could tell a different story? Gary Smith spent 20 years trying to make people understand that something seemed fundamentally wrong with this investigation. He pointed to the coffee cups, the door latch, what he described as the arranged appearance of the scene. He hissed someone else may have been there, someone who didn't want to be identified. Tom Grant compiled hundreds of pages documenting what he considered investigative failures, overlooked evidence, and unanswered questions. He presented this information to authorities, to journalists, to anyone who would listen. Most dismissed him. Few took the evidence as seriously as he believed it warranted. But the evidence doesn't disappear just because it's ignored. The contradictions don't resolve just because they're inconvenient. And some believe the truth doesn't change just because the official story is easier to accept. 2 coffee cups that some believe prove someone else was there. A door latch that critics argue proves someone else left that room. A shotgun with no fingerprints that some suggest indicates someone else handled that weapon. And sealed police reports that, according to transparency advocates, prove someone has information they may not want revealed. The question isn't whether there are problems with the official investigation. The documented evidence makes that, according to critics, undeniable. The question some investigators continue to ask is, who might be protected by maintaining the suicide signet? Who could benefit from keeping this case closed? Because someone has a secret, and in part 3, their name will finally be revealed.